second round, especially I tried to concoct, and I talked about it with Francis Williams yesterday. I tried to concoct a theory, and Francis Williams, Blazer analyst on Root Sports, smartly swatted it down in a very nice and polite way, as a guest would do. He didn't say you're a big dumb doofus, but I don't know. I tried to go like, if this draft is not top heavy, maybe there's more gems in the back half. He's like, I don't think there's any gems in this draft. And so the Blazers didn't think so either. And for the second round, they, boom, punted. And they're like, we'll see in a couple of years. Second round.
We're out.
We got a couple of Golden State, you want your pick back? How about you pay for it? We'll trade that back and you get it back, and then we'll get bought out from Oklahoma City. And so instead, all of this anticipation coming into the draft, the Blazers end up with Donovan Clingan out of the draft, right? They traded for Deni Avdija, but that was a trade. They get one player out of the draft, and I think kind of a smart move, right? They liked Clingan. More on him in a moment. They liked Clingan. Didn't seem to like anybody else because 14, that was an easy throw in to bring in Avdija. Nobody in the second round, just kept trading back, collecting picks. We'll see you in a couple years. We have reached peak Nepo baby status. I thought they were going to do it, but in my head, I thought there was a chance. There was a chance that J.J. Redick and Rob Pelinka were going to be like, are we really drafting LeBron's kid? But instead, they put on a show. The LeBron sycophants, the LeBron stands that work at ESPN all fell into line. And congratulations, NBA. You are the National Braun Association. The NBA is no longer the National Basketball Association. The NBA is the National Braun Association. If you watched, they put on a second-round TV show. And here's my question. You ready for some tinfoil hat stuff? Did they know this was going to happen the entire time? Because there is no reason, zero, zilch, none, nada, for the NBA to have a second round of the NBA draft the next day. There's no reason for it. We could sit and count on one hand the amount of second-round picks over all the years and all the picks who, A, you've ever heard of, and B, made a contributing performance to an NBA team. Probably count them on one hand. Basically, we always just go Jokic and Draymond. And I think now Jalen Brunson, I think, is in there now. But that's the list. And yeah, there's always going to be, like, going back in NBA history, when the draft was different, when it was 7 rounds and, guys would get drafted and the second round pick actually wasn't anymore. Boy, you get past the top 10, you get out of the lottery. There's stretches, there's guys you've never heard of. Into the second round, like we joke around, Nikola Jokic, she was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial because they're running commercials. Pick is in. So here's my conspiracy theory. Did they know this the whole time? Why, oh, why would the NBA, who could get both rounds done, boom, boom, one night, right? It's 5 minutes a team. It's not like the old NFL draft at 15 minutes. It's 5 minutes a team. And most of these teams take 3 minutes or less. Pick is in. Let's go to the commissioner. First round was moving. You're going to have a second round the next day? Why on earth would you do that? Oh. Because as ESPN told me yesterday as I was watching, the most anticipated second-round draft pick of all time, which, by the way, that sounds like hyperbole. They ain't wrong. Now, not in all of the right ways. So if we look back with clear eyes, full hearts can't lose, but with clear eyes, with 2020 vision, looking back, we all knew this the entire time. It is the worst kept secret. Brendan, we have the Los Angeles Lakers, an organization that has how many championships? 17? What do they got? How many championships do the Lakers have? Like 17 championships?
The Celtics now.
If you count the Minneapolis, going all the way back to the Minneapolis Lakers, George Mikan widened out the key because of old George Mikan.
That's why they're called Lakers, Justin.
That's why they are the Lakers.
Not a lot of lakes in Southern California.
There's a couple, but yes, I hear what you're saying. Not quite.
At least a Clipper's relevant.
Yeah, you could take that Clipper boat from San Diego and Clipper sail it all the way up to L.A., but neither here nor there. They've got 17 championships. They are the gold standard for NBA royalty. LeBron James just took over that organization. Just took over the organization. And he started being GM James, and he brought in Anthony Davis, and they won in the bubble, and that's great and all. But LeBron's podcast co-host is the head coach, and LeBron's kid just got drafted. I've been saying, this feels like the Emperor's new clothes. Now, we're going to talk about nepotism in sports, and is this really that much of a step forward when we look at all the other things we know about sports and nepotism and things that go along with it? Are we really that upset about it? But I think the thing about this that I go head scratching is this whole time, LeBron James is yep, I want my podcast coach to be my head coach. Has he ever coached before? No. He did play in the league, but he's never coached before. He's super smart, guys. All right, we'll do that for you, LeBron. And I'm going to need you to draft my kid.
He was a college star, right, LeBron?
Yeah. Well.
He's best player in the Pac-12, right? Sixth man of the year, right?
No, not sixth man of the year. He's starting. Yeah, no, I'm going to need you to draft my kid who scores 4 points on a team that's not going to make the tournament.
That fires our coach. Well, essentially.
Also, LeBron, your kid doesn't have any health issues, right? No cardiac
Didn't even think
scare
about that.
or anything. We're going to draft him. And your agent and you, he's not going to play in the G League. This definitely will not be a two-way deal. Because that's what Rich Paul said. Rich Paul said Bronny's going to the draft, and he's not going to be a two-way guy.
Did you see the threat that Rich Paul apparently made yesterday, too? That
yeah. And
Bronny would go play in France or something like that?
This is the thing that's again, we're really going to get into this. And if you really like LeBron, I don't know if you're going to like the first hour of the show. I don't know.
We love you, though.
But I appreciate you listening. But it's is the NBA in trouble? In all seriousness, is the NBA in trouble? Now, they're going to be making money hand over fist, and the TV revenue is coming in. But if you're an NBA fan, how are you feeling about the last 3 days? How are you feeling about the biggest thing in the offseason is your draft. It's your draft. Now, not the NBA's fault that the draft was down. But you had ESPN who had a panel out there who were more interested with arguing with one another. Brendan, they didn't know the players either. Now, I am a morning show host in Portland. I cover the Blazers. That's my job. My job is, I learned who Denny Avdia is. Avdia, got to say it right. I learned who he was. That's my job. But I couldn't tell you about Risha Shea before we called him Rissicher. I think we called him for that for 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, that was 80% my fault, for sure.
We called him Rissicher.
But hey, I didn't really look it up to ask you.
We learned his name, but
Risha Shea. You gotta get the French accent, Justin.
Yeah. I don't know who that Corral guy is. Like, I don't know, but not my job. You got a bad draft. You've got a panel up there that has Stephen A. Smith basically saying, yeah, I don't know any of these guys. Okay, you take half a day and you learn some names. You got 5 producers that are assigned to you. And then, so that first day of the draft, insignificant names. Hope Clingan becomes a dude because we love our Blazers, but insignificant names. Stephen A. Smith didn't put any work in. He just wanted to argue with Bob Myers like it was a pregame show and talk about the Knicks. Then the next day, LeBron James's kid, who averaged 4 points a game in college on a team that stunk, gets drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers. And what does ESPN do? Boy, what a great father-son moment. It's like, this was manufactured. It was not a real father-son moment. Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. was a real father-son moment that all of us Gen Xers experienced back in the 90s. Because Griffey was the number 1 overall pick. And his dad was still playing at a high level by the time Griffey got up to the Mariners. That was a touching father-son moment. This was manufactured, made for TV, for entertainment purposes only. All right, it's a Fancy Coffee Friday, but we don't have enough time to open up Fancy Coffee Friday. We do want to talk. Have we reached peak Nepo baby in the sports world? That is next on 620 Rip City Radio. One of my favorite things to do in preparing, Justin, you prepare a little bit, in preparing for the show. One of my favorite things to do is we will have our pre-show meeting and we'll kind of go over like, what do you want to talk about? You want to hit this? You want to hit that? What do we do here? And believe it or not, there is some sort of a system here. Now we have loose guardrails because we don't want to get pigeonholed, and if something is entertaining and working, we want to keep going. But we'll come in with a list of topics that we need to hit and we need to discuss. And one of my favorite things to do, it happens about once every 2 weeks, is young Brendan in all of his 28 years of wisdom will come in and will say, hey, boom, boom, boom. Isn't this like the only time this has happened? And I will get to sit back on the couch in the producer's room and go, well, let me tell you. And then I'll waste a bunch of time waxing poetic about something that has already happened. And so it's one of my favorite things. Now, I don't know if Brendan likes it, but and then Brendan Googles it and goes, you're kind of right. And that's how the morning goes a lot. But it makes my middle-aged heart sing when I get to tell the kids, well, there was this, and then this happened, and then there was this. Well, we get a little of both. Of yesterday afternoon, we saw something I don't think I ever thought I would see when the Los Angeles Lakers drafted Bronny James. But also, nepotism in sports is tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Shout out to Beauty and the Beast. We have just now seen it take another step further. Shouldn't surprise anybody that at some point we were going to get here, but I wonder, have we reached a point where maybe fans, us, the consumers, NBA is the product, we are the consumers, have we reached the point where enough is enough? Because in a world full of privilege, nepotism, we hear about it all the time. Sports has always been the ultimate meritocracy. Not 100%, but for the most part, you could pretty much count on the fact that the 12 guys on the roster of your favorite NBA team are the 12 best guys that they could find, unless they're tanking. But even then, they're not bringing in the coach's kid to tank. Not 100% of the time, but for the most part, you could bank on the 53 guys on your favorite NFL team's roster are the best 53 that they could find. They had to cut guys that are really good, and that every roster spot was coveted and taken seriously. And the 25 guys on the baseball roster, and so on and so forth. But nepotism has always been a part of sports. It usually is in the coaching ranks. Case in point. Who's probably the best coach in the NFL right now? Probably Andy Reid.
Yeah, Andy Reid.
After Andy Reid, Brendan, who's the second best coach in the NFL right now?
For my money, it's Kyle Shanahan.
That's the exact right answer. Thank you so much.
But debates could be had.
Exactly right. I would agree. I think Kyle Shanahan is probably the second best coach in the NBA in the NFL right now. How do you think Kyle Shanahan got on a coaching staff? Do you think he changed his name in the early years so that nobody would know he's Mike Shanahan's kid? Now, it doesn't mean he's not qualified. He's the second best coach in the NFL, in my opinion. But how did he get on the staff in the first place? How do you get? Because coaching, yeah, it's a grind, but any Oregon fan knows the story of Dan Lanning. How did Dan Lanning get into coaching? He saved his money as a elementary school PE teacher and a high school football coach, put on a suit in a in a gas station bathroom, and went to Pitt to essentially beg to be a quality control assistant to run the camps.
For Todd Graham.
for Todd Graham, who's not exactly
Not in coaching anymore.
he's not in coaching anymore, and at the time wasn't exactly Nick Saban. You know what I mean? But it was, I got to get in the door. Well, how do you think Kyle Shanahan got in the door? He got in the door because his dad's Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, Dad helped.
Now, he earned it after the fact, but he got in the door because his dad was Mike Shanahan. Assistant coach for the Washington Huskies right now is Steve Belichick. And if you wonder who Steve Belichick is, he's the one doofus on the sideline for the Patriots who had a mullet the entire time. First off, is Bill Belichick hiring anybody at that age who's got that mullet with that experience if his name's not Steve Belichick? Now, to Steve Belichick's credit, he was good enough to get on the staff of the Washington Huskies, but how do you think he got in the room? How do you think he got in the coaching office? It wasn't because they thought his mullet was cool. Broadcasting. We talk about inside the NBA all the time, right? Inside the NBA, Ernie Johnson. Yeah, Ernie Johnson's dad, broadcasting legend for TBS and Turner Sports. Not saying that Ernie Johnson on Inside the NBA isn't one of the best in the biz. He is, but how do you think he got in the door? Right now, Monday Night Football is Joe Buck. Joe Buck calls Monday Night Football. How do you think Joe Buck got into broadcast? Oh, his dad is Jack Buck. See, this is tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, nepotism in sports. It is something that we have seen. Even going all the way back, I'm sure, Brendan, you've heard of Mike Piazza, Hall of Fame catcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, also played for the Mets, but is known as a Dodger. Mike Piazza's godfather, which in the Italian world is very different than the, hey, you want to be godfather? Is Tommy Lasorda.
Makes sense.
Tommy Lasorda, in like round 45, back when they had like 40-some rounds of the Major League Baseball draft, but in like round 45, Tommy Lasorda drafted Mike Piazza. Mike Piazza was not a prospect. Mike Piazza was not on anybody's draft board back in the 80s. Mike Piazza was Lasorda's godson. We'll draft him. 45th round. No big deal. We'll send him to single A. Now, to Mike Piazza's credit, he turned out to be a very special player and is in the is in the Professional Baseball Hall of Fame. But he doesn't get drafted. He doesn't get on a roster if Tommy Lasorda is not his godfather. Doesn't happen. This has happened over and over and over and over again. We've also seen, and not just Deion Sanders, who put his kid at quarterback, but we've seen before coaches' kids. I believe Tubby Smith, when he was at Kentucky, his kid was the starting point guard.
Doug McDermott, basketball, though.
Doug McDermott, his dad was a head coach at Creighton. Maybe one of the all-time leading scorers in Oregon State basketball history. His dad was the coach. But I feel like, so you see what I'm saying? We pick and choose, I think, a lot, because I wasn't outraged, but I was more annoyed yesterday watching ESPN's coverage of this, and it was like, oh, what an unbelievable! Could you imagine? You guys are fathers, and again, I'm not a father, but like, oh, you guys are fathers. Could you imagine the pride that any of you is like? This is made up, contrived, made for TV. This isn't real. It's manufactured. This kid does not deserve to be drafted anywhere. He should be playing year 2 in college, getting better, and but LeBron's going LeBron. So, of all the examples that I just mentioned, because we've seen, and I'm sure I've missed a couple. Chauncey Billups' brother was on the Blazer staff. He's not anymore, but he was. Not saying he's not qualified, saying it's a whole lot easier to get that interview if you know the guy in charge. I bet you we could go down nearly every Power 5 college football program of any substance and find some sort of nepotism there. Whether it's a son-in-law, whether Mike Krzyzewski's daughter is an associate AD at Duke. I think she got that job. So we see it all the time. So I guess the question I'm asking is, was yesterday afternoon a step too far? Or is this what we do in sports? And if you really look back and put in the work and put in the research, nepotism is as woven into the fabric of sports as anything else is. I guess here's where I got a little bit frustrated yesterday, is watching the ESPN panel. Because I've said this whole Bronny thing, it feels like the emperor's new clothes, right? Nobody shall tell the emperor no. The emperor had no clothes on. No one would tell him. And it feels like, the term gaslighting gets thrown around a ton. And I think people use it incorrectly all the time. I feel like as a fan, as a basketball fan, and yeah, I know I talk on the air, I'm a member of the media, but I'm not a reporter. I have no journalistic integrity. You guys should know that. I'm a fan who kind of, sort of presents my fandom in an entertaining way that hopefully you guys all enjoy. Thanks for listening. But as a fan, I felt gaslit yesterday. I felt like, am I losing my mind? Am I going crazy? Am I the only one out there that feels like this is a ridiculous charade? There's enough French players drafted yesterday. I feel like I can say charade. Because as soon as Bronny gets drafted, ESPN goes into absolute celebration. And not one person on that panel was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. Now, some may say, Justin, it's a 55th pick, dude. It's a 55th pick. What's the harm? And you might be right. 55th pick is generally a pick that you throw a flyer out on, right? Let's take a chance. The Blazers have done it for years and years and years. Guys who you've never heard of, but they have athletic upside. So, in that sense, maybe I'm a bit overreacting. Also, maybe I'm being a hypocrite. What if Michael Jordan's kids were a smidge better at basketball than being a preferred walk-on at Central Florida? Also, by the way, you know who are top-level executives in the Jordan brand and Flight Club, which is where the Jordan shoes, that's Jordan's kids. So my beloved Michael Jordan's not immune from this as well. So I guess maybe the problem isn't that they took Bronny James at 55. I guess my problem is that the entire time we saw this coming. We saw it coming. LeBron James got his co-host a head coaching job, and he got his kid drafted on a team and said, while the agent is calling other teams going like, don't even think about it. He's going to Australia. Wasn't that what Rich Paul was doing yesterday? Unless you are, how did Phoenix get? Maybe it's because it's close to LA. I don't know. But it's like, unless you are LA or Phoenix, if you draft Bronny James, let me tell you, he ain't playing for you. He's going to Australia. He's going down under.
take Bronny out of the equation, I don't really know what the hit rate is on second-round picks, but it's low to begin with.
It is low, yes.
And case in point, like, let's just, for fun, look back at some of this. Like, again, Ryan Repair for the Blazers went 43rd last year. Fine player, some upside, but didn't knock anybody's socks off this last year. Jabari Walker went 57th a couple years back. Rotation piece, but really good player in Colorado. I know Justin remembers Greg Brown from Texas.
How could you forget Greg Brown? He threw a dunk down between his legs in the middle of an NBA game.
CJ Ellaby. So
the face of the tank.
Right. Jake Layman. So guys like that who are like, yeah, they could be exciting for like a moment, but they could also like be out of the league in like 2-3 years. You know what I mean? So again, strip everything else away. I just, if I have to see one more thing, Justin says, well, Bronny could project to be, this great 3-and-D type player with being in a development with a team and save me all that. He was drafted because he was Bron's kid. Let's call a spade. And I hope he can at least play competent NBA basketball. Otherwise, this will be he won't get a second contract.
So, but let's talk about where this is real quick, because you brought up some very fun names going back in the day, right?
I did, didn't I?
And I don't want CJ Ellaby to catch some strays. He's a Seattle kid, right?
He was good at Washington State.
He's a PNW. He scored 17 points a game for Washington State. He shot 36% from 3 in college. That's not 4 points a game.
Best hair, too. Anybody who could rock that hair.
Good hair.
That afro these days.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, that's the guy who... He was not an NBA player. He's not an NBA caliber player. Barely 12th man on the bench. That kid in the same conference that Bronny James was in. Same conference. RIP, by the way, we got to do some Sarah McLaughlin because I believe today is when the Pac-12 network goes dark. Same conference. He shot 36% from 3. Also is 6'6", 200 pounds, about the size of Bronny James, correct?
Taller than Bronny.
Tall.
Weighs more, too.
And couldn't get on the... So, again, I understand that is a position in the 55th pick in the second round, that's where... Here's my beat. One, can you cut him?
Bronny?
Yeah.
Well, are you asking if it's legal?
No. I know it. You can cut him. You can cut anybody. Is J.J. Redick going to be willing to cut Bronny James?
For 3 years.
Do you play him? Right? And by the way, I just know this is the tip of the iceberg. And I guess the other part that I'm just like, what are we doing here? Is, again, the lining up. Like, nobody on ESPN's panel had the gumption to be like, this is a terrible pick. Stephen A. Smith was yelling all the time about how, this pick was terrible. That executive's terrible. They don't know what they're doing. You just drafted a kid that scored 4 points in the Pac-12. You did. You drafted a kid that scored 4 points in the Pac-12 on name recognition.
But Justin,
and nobody on that ESPN panel is going to what a moment of father and son. It's not real. He manufactured it. Now, to LeBron's credit, he created that. He's the second greatest player of all time. It is his league. Why? Because he hires the coaches, and apparently now he drafts the players. Because his guys get picked, but that doesn't make it real.
Justin, I think LeBron and Rich Paul just showed Bronny's tape against Oregon State when he had his career high this year and just said that's the only game worth looking at.
That's all
They
just
showed the Beaver game, man, when he had 15 points. I'm like, look at that game.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm getting gaslit because I'm watching this ESPN coverage and I'm like, I had to turn it off because what an unbelievable, this is historic. I'm like, it's made up. They made it up. At any point in time, any player who had a kid of it could have drafted their own kid as well. Didn't. And is there maybe some bigger problems coming down the way for the NBA now that they have fully let LeBron James run the league? Like, he hired the Lakers coach and he drafted their second rounder. Neither of which are really qualified. All right, we're going to head to the break. Oh boy, EA Sports. Has EA Sports dumb like a fox? On campus countdown to kickoff is next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, countdown to kickoff. 64 days away. We are 64 days away from college football kicking off in 2024. Speaking of college football, very exciting bit of news coming up on Monday's show. Very excited about that. So we've got some college football news coming up on Monday with regards to this particular program. But we are 64 days from college football. We're less than that to Brendan's precious College Football 25 video game that is coming out in a handful of weeks. And
Pre-order has been made.
Pre-order has been made.
Double MVP Deluxe Edition, baby.
And I have got a theory. Brendan, I have got a theory. And we're going to do it as we go on campus. Let's go. As you well know, Brendan, I watch a lot of TikToks. I watch a lot of Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, whatever you want. I watch a lot of TikTok videos. More than I don't have TikTok brain, but every once in a while you'll see these videos pop up on TikTok or on Twitter or what have you, and you'll be like, oh, my God, I can't believe that. And then you'll scroll down and be like, oh, that was fake. It was clearly fake. It was clearly made up. It was, what do they call it? Engagement farming is what they call it in the content world. Brendan knows all about it. He's in the content game. I'm a radio host. So I've gotten pretty good at like, oh, I'm going to react. Oh, nope. I bet that's. I saw a video of a girl saying she suffered from time blindness, which is essentially Gen Z saying that we don't have to be on time because we have a disease, a condition called time blindness, and it should be catered to that causes Gen Z to lose track of time and be late. So they shouldn't be punished for it because they can't control it. And I'm like, that might be fake. Well, the last couple of days, EA Sports has been releasing their rankings, right? We talked about it a couple of days ago. Toughest places to play. And I'm scratching my head here because they released the offensive and defensive rankings. Brendan, have you seen these offensive or defensive rankings?
Haven't seen them yet, no.
Don't worry about it. Because I wonder if we're all being played here. Because the college football world is a buzz of the EA Sports rankings. It started with toughest places to play, and they went Kyle Field at Texas A&M, and we're like, that doesn't make a lick of sense. Yeah, it's a big stadium and it's loud, but no one has ever said, boy, don't want to go into Kyle Field on a Saturday. Washington Husky Stadium wasn't even on the list. And you're like, all right. Then the offensive rankings came out. Now, Oregon is number 1 offensively ranked in this game, tied with Georgia. 94 is where Oregon is ranked in a video game. Again, this is make-believe video game stuff. These are not actual rankings, but much like the Madden rankings, when they come out, NFL players get excited or mad about their Madden ratings. Same thing here, only it's got the college football world all abuzz. As Oregon is tied for number 1 at a 94, the usual suspects are sitting in there. And then out of nowhere, Colorado Buffaloes, number 8 rated offense. Now, I know they put up some points last year in a couple of games, but I also watched them put up 6 points at Autzen Stadium. When they faced a real team, I saw them get absolutely dismantled by mediocre Pac-12 teams. And yes, Shedeur Sanders, by all accounts, is a above-average quarterback. I still don't believe he's capable of being a first-round draft pick, but I might be wrong and I might be biased because this whole Colorado thing has got my goat. But they put Colorado at number 8. They don't have an offensive line. Everybody remember the offensive line of the Colorado Buffaloes last year? The number 8 overall offense? Then the Miami Hurricanes are sitting in the top 10. Now, I know they got Cam Ward and they got a pretty good running back. But Has anybody watched the Mario Cristobal offense in the last 10 years of college football?
It's really easy to go to Miami when certain things are removed from like the Corvallis Police Department.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Take care of that. Get your 100K.
You better be careful though, because that stuff isn't
bounce.
quite as open in Florida as it is Oregon.
Heard that.
Just gonna throw that out there.
But Brendan, you've watched Mario Cristobal football.
I have. Rather boring, I must say.
Top 10. So.
But this is just like ratings of players, though.
Yeah, but hear me out, though, because I think they're doing this on purpose. Because they get everybody all around. Our friend Josh Pate did 7 minutes on his show last night on the ratings. Andy Staples on his show was talking about ratings on a video game. This is genius marketing. I don't believe for a second they believe that Colorado's a top 10 offense. I think they know that Colorado draws a lot of eyeballs. By the way, defensive ratings also came out. USC is ranked 20th in the country in defense. Meanwhile, Nebraska, who was, I believe, top 10 in almost every defensive category last year and only got better. Nebraska's not anywhere to be found in the top 10 or the top 15. And I'm like, do the people at EA Sports, like, is this game going to stink? Did they just pay attention to the fight songs and the pomp and the circumstance? Do they not know ball? And then I thought, no, this is fake. They're doing this on purpose. This is marketing at its best. Now, I don't know if you need to market this at all because this is one of the most anticipated video games that I can remember because I don't play video games, and we've talked about it a ton on this particular program. But these ratings, I think there are some false flags up here. I think there are some straw men. I think there are some I think there's some shenanigans, some hooligans. I think there's some goofiness going on.
Now I'll say this.
I think they're putting in fake ones to get us all riled up, to get us talking about it, because we're talking about this game almost as if it is a real life thing.
You may not be wrong.
I present my case.
But I'll say this, Justin. I don't know if someone who hasn't picked up a controller to play a video game in 20 years is qualified to say whether it'd be good or not.
You can tell me in 3 weeks. I know when the buzz is high, though.
Yeah, no, for sure.
The buzz around this is as high as anything. And that's what I'm saying.
You're really, like, upset with? Like, I'm looking at the defensive rankings right now. Those are all top 25 teams minus Colorado. And, I feel the same way. No disagreements here. But the rest of it, I don't feel like there's too
What I'm saying
issues.
is I think they put in the weird ones. Like Kyle Field being number 1, toughest place. They put that in there so that we're talking about it. And then we're going to talk about this video game over and over. It's free advertising that we've been giving them. And you know what? You got me. Tip of the cap to you, EA Sports. Hour 2 next, 620 Rip City Radio. It is 7 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you in the second round of the NBA draft. The Blazers didn't end up picking anybody. They didn't like this draft either. Instead, punted their picks. 34 went to Philly for 3 future second-round picks, and the 42nd pick went to Oklahoma City for cash considerations. There was a selection at number 55 as the Los Angeles Lakers selected Bronny James of USC with their second-round selection. The NFL is ordered to pay $4.7 billion in NFL Sunday ticket lawsuit. That number could climb to as high as $14.7 billion under antitrust laws. Will that judgment change the way we watch NFL Sunday ticket? That may be coming up in a make or miss coming up in just a bit. Mike Richmond joins us in hour number 3, hour 2. It starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are having a fantastic Friday. We're having a good time. Coming up in 20 minutes, Make or Miss is on the way. It is also a Hot Take Friday. When all the dust settled after the NBA draft on both Wednesday and Thursday, conspiracy theory. Brendan, do you think they put the second day in there because they knew that the Lakers were going to take Bronny James? Or was that already
I think it was already decided.
But we had known for months, that when did Bronny declare for the draft?
May, April.
Yeah.
Because he was going to transfer.
And you knew he was. Well, he went transfer portal and then the draft, and then was like, nope, I'm only going to the draft because it was May. May was when, I remember, in May, it was like, yeah, have to make the decision. It's like, yeah, he's sticking with the draft. This felt very contrived.
Oh, it did.
Like the fact that the NBA, along with ESPN and everybody else, just got together and was like, well, how about we do this? We don't want Bronny James being drafted at it would have been around midnight or something on East Coast time. Maybe it was just a coincidence that the most, I don't know, notable second round pick of all time. Now, I'm not talking about what they became, because save me, I get it. Yeah, Draymond, Jokic, all that. Nobody knew who Jokic was going into that draft. Nobody was like, oh, this guy out of Serbia, we really got to stick around. Why are they running this Taco Bell commercial? Like, nobody knew who he was. Now, it turned out to be a 3-time MVP and might be the best basketball player in the world. But it just is fascinating to me that of all the years that the NBA would say, we're going to make it a 2-night event. And the second round, which is going to, you thought you didn't know anybody in the first round. Boy, wait till you see our second round. You really aren't going to know any of these guys. Oh, except for this one that you're all going to be paying attention to around 55. I don't know. Seems very, very convenient that of all the years to run a second round in a second day on its own, who was the other most notable second-round pick? Kyle Filipowski? Like, oh, yeah, we really need to build up the anticipation for Kyle Filipowski. This is a Bronny James production. By the way, the same network that brought you the decision, in case you're wondering. Same network that brought you the decision. It's the same network that is the NBA's biggest media partner. Just happened to have a second round when LeBron James's kid has been projected as a second rounder for months. Windhorst, why would they do that? Why would they interrupt afternoon programming when in the middle of the day for the second round? Now, why would they do that?
Oh, and I also wanted to add in, Justin, just to make sure we're clear on what was said and what was not. I said, Rich Paul said Bronny would go to France. I lied. He said he's going to Australia.
Australia, yeah, I saw.
So, literally, the fact that that was thrown out there. And that's kind of
Yeah,
what
you don't remember when I did my Australian accent in the first hour? Did you block it out?
I must have missed it. But just like going back to what we were talking about with Pounce earlier this week, how we threw it out there like in a joking fashion, like maybe Rich Paul will like steer Bronny. Like we kind of knew he'd be steered, but not so much as like, yeah, no, he's like calling other GMs the day of the draft in the second round saying, don't you dare take him.
So
Like that's insane to think about.
I had heard earlier in the week, or maybe it might have been last week, Bill Simmons as a joke, like floated the hold Bronny James hostage, right? It's a bad draft. Like the Blazers did not want one player in the second round. They were just like, next, keep trading back, cash considerations. We'll worry about the second round next year. Like that's what the Blazers did yesterday afternoon, and good for them. And I think it might have been our good friend Sean Highkin. I think Sean Highkin might have thrown it out there. Want to make sure I give the right credit to the right person, but it essentially kind of saying the same thing of like, why didn't he says forget drafting Bronny to get LeBron James to sign? Says, why didn't a team do it and try to get the Lakers to give up an unprotected future first to get him, right? And I think we talked about, well, if you did that, do you make an enemy for life with Rich Paul? And
I think you would have.
Does that handcuff you? So, again, like
franchise.
I said, the NBA is the National Brawn Association. It is. Like, plenty of teams in the NFL do this all the time in the late rounds. Like they will grab guys like, oh, this team knows that like a divisional opponent will know like, hey, the Giants really like this left tackle. They're hoping to get him in the fourth round, and the Eagles jump in and draft him. And they'll do it they'll do a spite draft. It happens all the time. There would have been no bigger spite draft than like, yeah. Hey, Lakers, unprotected first next year, and then you get Bronny. Well, then Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, then says, good luck negotiating whatever team, right? Let's just say it's, I don't know. Let's just say it's the Jazz, right? Let's say the Jazz in the second round draft Bronny. I was like, yeah, we'd like a first rounder. We'll trade you Bronny. Or if you don't, he goes to our G League team. Okay, you want to go to Australia? Fine. We still own his rights. I think you own the rights for a year, I think.
Second rounders?
Yeah. Did you own the rights for a year?
Three.
For 3 years?
Yeah, because it's like his first rounders are 4-year deals, second rounders are 3 or 2 usually.
Okay.
But
if you're like the Jazz, right, and I'm not saying Danny Ainge would do this. He's a 5'4" guy. He's a man of integrity. It's how we roll in Southern Oregon. But if you were a team like Utah, I was like, well, we'll just draft him and hold him. Essentially, well, good luck. Because Rich Paul who has every high-level client, it seems, in the NBA, well, good luck negotiating and getting any future players that you don't draft yourself. It's the National Brawn Association. It is. That's what it became last night. All right. Today is also a significant day. Today's a significant day. Final broadcasting, and I was part of a television station that, as we say in the biz, went dark. I was the second to last show on NBC Sports Northwest. Shout out to the bridge. I think Talking Ducks was right behind me, and then that station went bye-bye. Well, another station goes dark later tonight, and it's a station that was in our lives, a channel that was in our lives for a long, long time. And you know what? There were some highs, a lot of lows. But a fitting tribute and a fond farewell. Brendan, are we ready with the Sarah McLaughlin? It is time to say goodbye to the Pac-12 network. This is In Memoriam. Goodbye, weird kickoff times. And asking your buddy, hey, yeah, I'd love to come over to watch the game. Do you have the Pac-12 network? I think so, only to show up, and they don't. Goodbye to that. Goodbye to countless hours of swimming, diving, gymnastics, sailing, track and field, whatever other Olympic sport that gymnastics that you would like to throw in there instead of just replaying football games that we all wanted to watch.
So I'm a little torn here, Justin, because what do we call this when you turn on the CW next year and Oregon State and Washington State games are basically look exactly the same as a normal Pac-12 broadcast because it's still Pac-12. It's like half gone and half not.
Yeah, but like I said,
I'm torn.
You don't have to. I don't know if you have to ask your buddy. Do you have the CW?
No, you don't.
They all have it.
You don't.
I don't know.
Everybody does.
By the way, goodbye to game being played on Pac-12 Network. Controversial call in a game having Pac-12 official call the office and be put into the booth to overturn a replay call. Actually happened in a Pac-12 game.
That happened?
On the Pac-12 Network. Goodbye to going cheap on cameras and what you called HD. And then I would flip it over to ESPN and go like, that looks way more high definition. And then you go back to the Pac-12 Network. And it turns out that was high definition from 15 years ago. We didn't upgrade the cameras. Goodbye once again to, during the weird 2020 COVID year, placing 3 cameras in Husky Stadium for a game only to have replay not be a possibility. And Oregon State would lose a game because of camera angles. Now we're going to miss you, Pac-12 Network. Goodbye to the hardworking people and friends of this program, former host of this program in Yogi, Nigel, Coach, Ashley, you know who we're talking about, who had to sit there and eat the television broccoli week in and week out of the crappy games they got sent to in this conference because they just couldn't send them to the good games. So we're going to miss you, Pac-12 Network. A fond farewell. You never made it to DirecTV. I don't think you ever made it even to Southern Oregon. But you know what? We all learned about Dish Network and Sling because of you.
Well, RIP Pac-12 Network to having the best game of the week going on Pac-12 Network because Pac-12 Network will get their choice over ESPN, Fox. So it'd be like, Civil War on Pac-12 Network. RIP to that, man.
And then playing that game at 11 a.m.
Yep.
With really bad cameras. We're going to miss you.
How can you watch Oregon State USC, Justin? Oh, Pac-12 Network.
Yep. We're going to miss you. All right, coming up next, we have got Make or Miss, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, 1 hour from now, Mike Richmond, Locked on Blazers podcast, friend of the program, joins the big show. Excited to talk to Mike about Blazers draft yesterday. Well, they didn't really have much of a draft yesterday. They made some moves. They punted to a couple of years into the future. I think probably a smart move. But an eventful day on Wednesday. And now we get into the interesting part of the season, which is where do they go from here? There are some hard decisions and hard discussions that are going to have to be made with regard to this Blazer roster, this Blazer lineup, who fits in where, who is going to be on the trade table. So we'll talk to Mike Richmond coming up in an hour from now. It is a Hot Take Friday. Weather's starting to heat up as well. It's supposed to be a beautiful weekend. Don't drive on I-5 though. Are you prepared for the I-5 shutdown, Brendan? You all hunkered down with your supply kits? The I-5 is shutting down.
Well, as you know, Justin, being in the great city of Sherwood, I don't really need to get to the I-5.
But there might be some adverse effects
Could be
in the other, what are they called, arteries?
Residuals working its way up. But yeah, like
I'm not driving anywhere this weekend. I don't trust it.
So
I don't live near I-5.
You're not gonna try to go to Costco on Sunday.
No. No.
Got you. So now you're not gonna.
I am a once a month Costco guy. I can get like everything that my wife and I need from Costco. We can just get about once a month.
We usually seem to go about every 3 weeks or so. So yeah, it's
yeah. I ain't driving anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think I will either. Like I said, I got big plans for 4th of July next week. So probably keep it low key this weekend.
All right, so we will have a Hot Take Friday though coming up in a bit. Right now, it is time for Make or Miss. Here we go.
All right, up first on Make or Miss. Yesterday and leading up to this morning, Australia said, "What did we do, Rich Paul?
What we don't want Bronny James.
What did we do
to come to? Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I bet you if the Australian Professional Basketball League,
Perth, Alex Sarr, yeah, Perth
Alex
might
Sarr
like him.
probably because didn't LaMelo play in Australia?
He did. The Adelaides.
He played in Australia.
He did.
And then he played in Lithuania, I think.
And New Zealand as well. He was all over the place because,
Yeah,
he wasn't going to go to UCLA.
But couldn't do high school basketball in California because he was persona non grata thanks to Dad.
He's been so, like I said, notice, have you ever seen a person just completely go out of the media ethos? Like, it was like one day we heard LeVar Ball on every single first take, undisputed, everything. And now, like, is he even alive? And I say that half-hearted, like, of course, but like, you don't even hear from him anymore.
Was it all a work? That's what I wonder. Was the whole thing a
Probably
work? Because you were seeing like the same thing. You ever heard of this Baby Gronk kid?
Mm-hmm.
It's a work, right? It's just like get my kid attention, get my kid eyeballs, and I would imagine once Dad realized I'm not going to make $1 billion off of this stupid brand the Big Baller brand, and that we're gonna make shoes and slides. We're gonna be like Gucci, and it's like, I think it might have all been just a scam, not a scam, but like I talked about with the EA Sport, like beware of engagement farming. You may be the crop that is engagement farmed. Because once he got his kids to the NBA, it was like, yep, my work is done here. So I wonder if like the whole thing was he that smart, or was it like, I think he got sued, and I think there was a big thing with Lonzo over the Big Baller brand, and I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Talk about a guy who was just everywhere, and then all of a sudden just like, no. Gone. We don't hear from him. We don't talk about him. He's got 2 kids in the NBA. 2 kids in the NBA. One was Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, it was so fascinating to
me. One
is
a massive piece to the Charlotte Hornets, like maybe their best player.
And obviously, just for a pure, like, it'd be a great story. Like, I'd love to see Lonzo get back and play NBA minutes. Like, that's we'll see if that ever happens. Literally had to go through. I mean,
He got dead guy meniscus.
yeah,
He got a cadaver meniscus that
yeah.
they needed to regenerate.
yeah, like it was bad, man. Like you feel for the kid because at the same token, like this as well as I, Justin.
Do you have to feel for him though? Like, I
Well-
guess I don't wish injury upon anybody, and
Yeah.
and it's got to stink to have injury derail an NBA career, but also, and I guess in this one instance, I guess I probably would feel for him because now he's made a good amount of money and he got a lot of opportunities to play in the NBA. But the rumors are that the shoes that he was wearing, the Zoes, were so bad that might have been part of the problem with the knee injuries because the shoes were just that awful. It might be a convenient narrative. It might be actually 100% true. But I couldn't imagine being like 18 on your way to UCLA and dad is out there shopping me. And how do you tell your dad no? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
No,
just
it's
don't
true.
you don't do that.
I guess for me, as I
I
look back at it like, we talked a lot about the Tatum draft recently, right? And obviously Jason Tatum is at the peak of his powers right now. And you go back and look at the two guys who went before him. How much different would Markelle Fultz have been if he basically didn't lose his shoulder almost and have to relearn to shoot and lose all his confidence, and basically all of it? And now he's just another guy in Orlando. And Lonzo, who we've talked about it, Justin, unlike Bronny or other people, Lonzo put up numbers when he was healthy.
Well, yeah.
And was a good player. And like when
Not like
we forget, Chicago was like a 2 seed
all of us
in the East. before they
all
went
of
down.
us Ball family like critics, I was one of them.
Me too.
We wanted him to stink. I was like,
Well,
that
yeah.
kid doesn't stink.
No,
he's really good.
You're right.
Wish dad would shut up, but
And he did.
but ultimately, yeah, he did.
How that quite works. But nevertheless, I found that very, very interesting.
I want to know what would have happened, just because I am a fan of watching chaos. Boy, I really wish somebody else would have drafted Bronny. I just want to know what would happen. Would they have truly sent him to Australia? Would he have went and played for Perth or wherever he was threatening to go play for? Would he go a world away from the hut, right? The compound, the James Family Center there in Beverly Hills? I'm assuming it's Beverly Hills. Would he have gone truly to the other end of the earth just to prove a point? Or would he have went and played for the Rockets? You know what I mean? I don't know. But it's an interesting strategy that worked. And I guess you have to tip your cap because I don't like the way that LeBron went about this, but results speak for themselves. And he got his kid on his team. By hook or by crook, he got his coach and he got his kid, and the entire time sat there and lied to our face and said, "I'm not involved in any of this. I don't know what you're talking about." See, that's the thing about it. And hopefully after today, we're going to stop talking about it so much. Probably won't. But I think it was at the combine or at one of the workouts, one of the two workouts that Bronny had, where he's like, I would like to think that my dad has no influence and that nobody's going to draft me just because of who my dad is. And that's fine. It's nice that he would have that, and that this decision was mine, and it wasn't, this wasn't about playing with my dad. This is about what's best for me. Then why do you have your agent calling teams saying don't draft him? You know what I mean? Why? Why do you do that if the whole point? And also, Phoenix was one of the teams that was approved. If Phoenix drafts Bronny, does LeBron go play for the Suns?
No, because
Would it be hilarious if he goes and just plays for the Suns at a veteran minimum with Kevin Durant?
Rich Paul said about a week ago there was a 0% chance of that happening. So they would have traded him back to LA.
He said a lot of things, though.
Yeah.
That turned out to not be
LeBron was
the most accurate.
LeBron was never going to take less than whatever his player option is this year. What, 50?
They say things, but I guess when you can just control whatever you want within the Lakers organization, you get to do whatever you want.
It's
So,
true. Like more
tip
money,
of the cap.
More money is always a good thing, and $55 million versus $2 million, and I don't have to go play with Kevin Durant. Like, would you really want into that smoke in Phoenix anyway? Like, no. If I'm LeBron, that's too much. Too much. Like,
It's a good question. Like, you get to play with your son, and you get like Phoenix, as much of a dumpster fire as they were towards the end of the year, they're still far better off in terms of winning a championship than the Lakers are, right?
it's a great question. They're probably
Right now, current rosters as constructed, who has a better chance of winning the NBA Finals next year, the Lakers or the Suns? I'm going to go with Suns. Both have new coaches. I think Budenholzer is a better coach than J.J. Redick, but that's because we've never seen J.J. Redick coach. I think Kevin Durant still has a lot of good basketball left on the legs. LeBron does too. I think Phoenix has a better chance of getting to the finals than the Lakers do. But maybe I'm just being a hater. I've been known to be a hater. But yeah, getting back to your original question, that's a make Australia. Like what did we do? How did we get in the middle of this?
They're like
out of nowhere. Like didn't say like could Bronny go back to college? I know the rules say no, but like what are rules anymore? What if it's like I talked about it with Oregon. Like, and Fally Dante got ruled ineligible by the NCAA, and I think he signed with somebody, undrafted free agent. But I was like, why not just play him? What is the NCAA going to do? You can't play. You're ineligible. We're not doing eligibility anymore. Or if you're like if you're Bronny, you're like, I'm just going to go back to USC. It's like, yeah, you can't play because you're a pro. I'm like, we're all pros. We're all getting paid here. It would lose in court.
That ain't happening.
It would lose? I don't know.
Make you a bet with a lot of money. That would not happen.
What wouldn't happen?
Bronny going back to college.
No, I know that. But what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be a better option than going to Australia?
Oh, yeah. I'm
team
sorry.
that didn't. Team
I misunderstood. I thought you meant like today, like he gets to the Lakers, is like, oh yeah, I don't want to do this.
No, what I'm saying is, what if
they threaten
other team drafts him? It's like, I'll just go back to college.
Sorry, totally misheard your question slightly, but yeah, that there were lots of things. I would imagine there were some NBA teams like the Mavericks who probably did have some interest and were like, let's just do this just to do this. But I'd be willing to bet, and Portland falls into this camp too, of about 20 NBA teams, Justin, who were like, they got the call from Rich Paul and were like, don't worry about it, Rich. He was never on our board to begin with. I'm going to say
how many teams are there in the NBA?
30. I said
there are 30
20
teams in the NBA. You can put 29 on that.
So yeah,
nobody wanted him. Nobody wanted him on
you-
their roster. The only reason anybody would have drafted him is because you knew the Lakers wanted him. But then, like we mentioned last segment, nobody wanted to turn their back on Rich Paul. All right, let's move on. I've talked enough about LeBron today. We're probably going to keep talking about it though. What do we got next?
We were going to go with another Bronny make or miss, but let's go ahead and shift. NFL's going to have to.
Let's try our best to not be first take today.
It's funny.
Hey, LeBron versus Jordan and their kids. Who was better dad? Does LeBron's son making the Lakers put him above Jordan in the GOAT conversation? Like, that's, by the way, you think that's not coming on First Take sometime in the next week? Where does this put LeBron in the GOAT conversation now that his kid made the NBA? Oh, my God. My head hurts that I know it's coming down the pike. Anyways, what's next?
The NFL is going to have to pay big money to make the lawsuit go away.
Okay. This is, now this might be actually important in our lives. So, U.S. District Court ordered the NFL to pay $4.7 billion in damages. Now, damages can be tripled under federal antitrust laws. So the NFL could end up being liable for $14.39 billion. And the lawsuit covered 2.4 million residential subscribers and 48,000 business owners. So what they were saying is because you put Sunday Ticket in such a premium price and that you only offered it on satellite. So this is only between the years of where was the years? 2011 through 2022. They were saying that there was no competition, there was no fair practices, and you have since created a monopoly. The NFL argued, no, we offer our product for free. They were saying football is football, and the district court said, are you kidding me? No, your team is your team. And that. So here's what I wonder. How does this change Sunday Ticket? Do we ultimately see Sunday Ticket come down in price, or does the NFL cut a check for 14 whatever billion dollars? I don't know where that money goes to, but do they cut a $14 billion check and then say, well, since we offer it on YouTube TV now, it is available for everyone, but the price is a fair market price? Do you think we see changes in Sunday Ticket? I don't know.
Probably not immediately, but again, like I mentioned to you before, Justin, it didn't seem like when we talked about this when it was first down, it didn't seem like a people's decision. And again, it seems to me like in this particular case, the jury found that, going back to the point, like if I am a Jacksonville Jaguars fan in Portland, Oregon, I shouldn't have to pay for 31 other teams' feeds and $400. And, I'm not saying that's for me. I don't have an NFL team that's, this is not specifically for me. But I think that's where this ultimately came to, Justin, is like for someone like you. Justin Myers, diehard Pittsburgh Steeler fan. There's not a lot of Pittsburgh Steeler games that are on our local TV.
Yeah.
Justin's option is pay for YouTube TV or don't get them. So I think just in today's choice-heavy world we live in, Justin, where it's I want it now, instant gratification.
Yeah.
I think that's where the jury went in this case.
But they did. I got two questions, though. One, where's this money going? Where's this $4 billion or whatever, whatever billion dollars going? Where is it going? Is it going to be one of those things where if you had it, you can like apply and you'll get like a $150 check or something? Have you seen those? Like, I worked with a guy one time. Brendan wore Skechers. Loved them. Loved Skechers. And then I remember there was a class action lawsuit against Skechers because they like claimed in advertising that like that there were health benefits to Skechers because you walked in them. And anybody that ever had Skechers could apply to be part of the class action. And you're like, well, you could receive a $25 check or 2 free pairs of Skechers. And he's like, well, I'll take my Skechers. So I wonder, like, are people that have had Sunday Ticket, do you get it for free like this year?
That's a good question, right?
And I think this whole thing comes to the sports bar part of it. And I may have this wrong, but like, so the price that you and I would pay to have NFL Sunday Ticket at our house was what, $400, $500, somewhere around there?
Yeah, something in that mix.
Sports bars, the price was based upon your occupancy. So like sports bars had to pay like $3,000-$4,000 a year to have Sunday Ticket, which you had to pay because if you're a sports bar worth your salt, you had to have Sunday Ticket. Nobody's going to your sports bar to watch football if you don't have Sunday Ticket. And like you would have to pay like $3,000-$4,000 because it was based upon occupancy. And so I like, do sports bars just get it for free next year? It's
how much, with how much they'd have to pay back, apparently.
And then now if moving forward, do we see, obviously not this year, the season starts in like 2 months, but by the 2025 season, will we be able to, hey, I don't want to pay the $500, but I'll be glad I'd pay $150. That's like $12 a month. I'll pay $12 a month to watch Pittsburgh Steelers all season long. Be more than happy to pay that. I think we might get that. And won't they make more money that way?
I think so.
All right. Speaking of making money, hot takes. That's what we do on this show. Hot Take Friday next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's wrap up hour number 2. Still have Mike Richmond coming up in hour number 3. Have some more thoughts on Donovan Clingan, and kind of where the Blazers go coming up in hour number 3. And we've got an RCM mailbag, but it's going to be a little bit warmer today. Very excited about it. It's going to be a nice weather weekend. And with the temperatures heating up, boy, does that mean we back off the spicy takes? Does that mean we cool down the takes on this particular Oh, absolutely not. No, this program and this industry, it was built on a strong foundation of hot takes. Hot takes, passionate arguments of stuff that isn't really not all that important. And so we save some of our spiciest for a little Hot Take Friday. Here we go. Brendan, I know we talked about this off the air. I know you're going to agree with me on this. I watched episode 1 of The Bear. It was terrible. It was terrible, lazy, weak. What is this TV show doing? Now, you have told me that episode 2 is a little bit better, and we're back on track. But
All systems go.
An entire first episode of a recap. By the way, The Bear, I can't really give spoilers because if you watched the show, everything in episode 1 you already knew. You already knew everything in episode 1. Also, hot take. I'm not impressed with your knife skills as an actor anymore. This was clearly hey, look at these actors and look at how good of chefs they became. You know who I'm impressed with knife skills? Actual chefs that make actual food. That's who I'm impressed by. Because you went to actor culinary school, and you want to show off your new skill. You did an entire episode where barely anybody talked, and all you did was sit there and just and chop stuff up. Now, I realize that I'm a bit of a hypocrite because in the TV show Yellowstone that I love, and I'm not looking forward to it wrapping up because it's going to stink, I am setting the bar lower than the expectations of the debate last night, my expectations of Yellowstone and the final season. If you thought the expectations couldn't be lower, that's where they are. But I have said on Yellowstone, I do like a good 5-10 minutes of just cowboying, riding horses, roping cattle, doing cowboy stuff. I kind of feel the same way about The Bear. Like, yeah, give me about 5 to 10 minutes of like just nobody's talking, everybody's locked in. Just we're dicing onions, we're searing steak, we're making sauce, making the sauce, spreading the puree on the plate. Too many tweezers, not enough talking, too much chopping. I was highly disappointed. Now I will. Because I am a pick and stick guy. I very rarely give up on shows, especially if I get into a third season. But The Bear really needed to come stronger than that. It was lazy. It felt lazy. Felt like somebody got a little too artsy fartsy and overthought it. It's like, nah. Just like football. Brendan, when you got a lead and The Bear has a lead, it might be one of the best TV shows going right now. You know what you do when you got a lead? We run the ball. All right? There's nothing wrong with running the ball. There's nothing wrong with stick to the basics, stick to the basics. So, I shall be watching episode 2. I was bummed out last night. I was bummed out watching that episode. I was so excited about season 3, and that one bummed me out. So, hot take. Episode 1 of The Bear, season 3. Not a fan. Didn't do it for me.
It was pretty rough. Just like I said, I was watching that one Wednesday night when it dropped, and that one was a little tough to get through, but I'll say that it returns to normal, and episode 2 was very solid. I'm going to go back and...
this is a recap of stuff we already know. We watched the show.
Yeah. Well, it's been, 3 years since it started, so, maybe some just kind of setting the stage.
Hey, you want to go back and watch some episodes? We got those. We're on demand, baby.
But yeah, I will. I'm gonna go back and I'm I'm going to go sports. I don't usually do sports with my hot take, but this morning something just happened recently that kind of set off my tinfoil hat alert. Hot take, Justin.
EA Sports is trolling us with their rankings?
Well, that can be
Clearly
true,
trolling us.
After today's trade, Dallas is going to come get one of Portland's players. So
Tim Hardaway Jr. just got traded away.
Basically a salary dump. So they dumped Tim Hardaway Jr.'s almost $17 million and got back a guy that makes $4 million.
Okay.
So that was a lopsided salary dump. We've heard the Mavericks be connected to Jeremy Grant. The Mavericks are the team who signed Matisse Thybulle to his restricted free agent, or to his whatever that was, Blazers match. So there's at least two forwards that I think Dallas could be interested in, Justin. Hot take. I think Dallas is calling Joe Cronin this morning.
All right, so the Blazers are going to get Luka, clearly, right?
Yeah, that'll happen.
Can I say real quick hot take? By the way, that's great. I'm excited. I'm excited about that. Isn't it a bit of a sigh of relief? Because for a long, long time, when Dame was on the roster for the Blazers, and I love Damian Lillard, but there was a trickle-down effect of having Dame on the roster, which was any time, like, a big, giant player was like, Paul George is being rumored to be moved by this weekend. And then Blazer Twitter is like, well, what do we got to do to get? And I was guilty of it. I saw, Paul George might be traded. Kevin Durant might be traded, sitting back going, like, well, he ain't coming here. So, like, there is a little bit of a sigh of relief. It's just like, definitely not getting in that mix. Can't get disappointed because there's no chance. And then when you hear about, like, all right, so I have resigned myself to when you say, they might come get Jeremy Grant. It's like, all right, so, like, future picks, maybe a tradable contract or a what is it? The getting why can I not think of the words right now, Brendan? The end of a contract.
Restricted free agency.
You get rid of a long-term contract, bring in somebody
Salary
on
dump.
a short-term deal, salary dump. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
Don't worry, I'm only a professional communicator. Don't worry about that. I've only been doing this job for 20 years.
The interesting thing to me, Justin,
I wasn't the only one to blank on a microphone in the last 24 hours, though. I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
It wasn't just me.
My question is now, we've seen them duck the tax. Are more moves inbound to get them even cheaper, or are they content with this now?
You know who we should talk to about this? Mike Richmond. He's going to be joining us in about 25 minutes. Excited to talk to him in hour 3 next, 620 Rip City Radio. It is 8 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. Second round of the NBA draft. The Blazers didn't select anybody. Instead, traded the number 34 pick to Philadelphia. 3 future second-round picks. Boy, are loading up with future second-round picks. And the 42nd pick was given away for cash considerations. The Lakers, though, they were busy. Bronny James, son of LeBron James, was drafted number 55 overall, second-round pick to the Los Angeles Lakers. In NFL news, the league was ordered to pay $4.7 billion with a B in the NFL Sunday Ticket lawsuit. That number could climb to as much as $14.7 billion under antitrust laws. 20 minutes from now, Mike Richmond from the Locked On Blazers podcast joins the big show. We have got an RCM mailbag and more on the Blazers' first-round selection and Donovan Clingan. Hour 3 starts right now, 620, Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. We're going to take a break for the next hour. I can't do this LeBron stuff anymore. No guarantees about next week. But for the time being, I want to get back to the Blazers. I want to get back to what the Blazers did on Wednesday and what the Blazers did yesterday. On Saturday, I believe the Blazers are going to be holding a press conference to officially introduce Donovan Clingan to the Pacific Northwest.
Gonna need a big chair.
Big dude.
Very big.
All right. Officially in shoes, 7'2.5".
Yep.
She's
a big dude.
We call him 7'2", right? We just call him 7'2". Or do we round up and go 7'3"?
With shoes.
Well, he's 7'2.5" in shoes.
Yeah, I go 7'3" then.
So you round up.
Absolutely. Give him the 2-inch college bump, man. It's like I said forever. Jaquiz Rogers listed at 5'8". Was he 5'8"? No, sir.
Can I tell you my favorite?
Yeah.
Fudging the numbers.
Sure. Yeah. That one was mine without a doubt.
If I were to ask you, how tall is Russell Wilson?
5'10".
So he's listed as a 6-foot quarterback, right?
I'd say probably about 5'10".
I've stood next to him. Shook his hand.
You're taller than he is?
He is my height.
I am 5'10", right?
On a good day.
Okay. Fair enough.
On a good day.
Fair enough.
I went and got life insurance. So when Kelly and I bought our house, we were like, all right, we need life insurance. So had to do the blood work, and I don't like needles. I thought the needles were going to be the worst part of the life insurance thing. I was like, yeah, take the blood. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I have a couple of bourbons at night. That's about it. I eat healthy. I avoid sugar. 40-year-old, healthy as a horse, take my blood. And then they go, all right, height and weight, let's measure you. And I'm like, I'll just tell you, I'm 5'10". She's like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and measure you. And Brandon, she threw out a number that was not 5'10". And I was like, yeah, let's try that again. You feel like, and I'm not even going to say the number because I don't even like it. She's like, how do you feel about it? I'm like, I don't like it at all. Let's try that again. Because my entire life, I believed I am 5'10". But yeah, I've stood next to Russell Wilson. He's my height.
It's fair.
He's my height. So
yeah, let's go 7'3" for the sake of fun and argument.
So I don't want to bring down anybody on a Friday. I really don't. I don't want to bring down anybody on a Friday. But are we being a little too puppy dogs and rainbows about Donovan Clingan? I guess maybe hope is a good thing, perhaps the best of things, right? We learned that from Shawshank Redemption. And I realize that situations are situational. But I can recall not that long ago, when the Blazers, who were in a much better situation, drafted a then 19-year-old, 7-footer, played 39 games in college, scored 10 points a game, grabbed 6 rebounds, shot over 40% from three. Shot over 40% from three in college. To contrast, freshman year, Donovan Clingan was averaging 13 minutes a game, scored 7 points a game as a freshman, and I do not believe attempted a three-pointer.
This last year? No, he did.
No, his freshman year.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Got you.
His freshman year, do not believe attempted a three-pointer. Shot 65% from two. And then this last year, three-point percentage was at 25%. Now, he did average 35 minutes a game, started nearly every game, and scored what was his points per game? 13 points per game. And so two, I would say, fairly comparable players, right? One was a 7-footer. The other one is 7'3". Both played at pretty prestigious college basketball programs. Both were in the finals of the NCAA championship. Now, Clingan's got a ring. This other guy doesn't. But 7-footer, young, averaged about 10 points, 6 boards, versus 13 points in a career. One shot over 40% from three. The other shoots 25% from three. And the reaction to drafting, and one was 7 and one was 10. I think you guys know who I'm talking about right now. The reaction to one is very different than the reaction to the other. Donovan Clingan coming in. Now, again, different type of center, but the comp to Zach Collins, not that crazy. Not that crazy. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying it's not that crazy. Donovan Clingan, a little bigger, both height and weight. Obviously, we knew about Zach Collins. He needed to put on weight. Unfortunately, the injuries piled up before that ultimately happened. But also the flip side, Zach Collins was a guy that in college was a step back, can shoot from long distance. Like I said, shot over 40% from three in college. But I remember, because I was on a different station back then, but I remember covering that draft. And Blazer Twitter freaking out. Because remember that year in 2017, the Blazers had 3 first-round picks. They combined to, I forget who they traded with, to move up to 10 to draft Zach Collins. And then they had a second one that they drafted Caleb Swanigan, RIP to Caleb Swanigan. But I very much remember the vitriol and the anger and the venom that came from Blazer fans going, why are we drafting this guy? He was a 10-point-per-game player. He was 7 feet tall. He was young. Played in 39, average 17 minutes per game. Because obviously Zach Collins was not a starter for Gonzaga, but still was a key contributor on Gonzaga that went all the way to the NCAA championship game, where they would ultimately lose to North Carolina. I find it interesting that the Blazers are in such a different position that the Donovan Clingan draft, I don't want to say it was 100% approved. Nothing's 100% approval rating, but where's all the venom and vitriol that Zach Collins took? And I think, here's my theory. Because as I said, situations are situational. You go back to 2017, the Blazers were in a spot where they had Dame, they had CJ, they had what looked to be a roster that was maybe a piece away. And they were coming off of a 4-game sweep in the first round to the Golden State Warriors, and going into that draft with 3 first-round picks, looked to be like, hey, can we get somebody that can hit the ground running? Then also in that draft behind Zach Collins, there was John Collins, Donovan Mitchell, and Bam Adebayo. And I think a lot of Blazer fans looked at that draft very differently than we look at this draft. But I did, and by the way, tip of the cap because I'm interpolating a tweet from our good friend Aaron Fentress. Fentress brought this up just as I thought, an interesting talking point. The Zach Collins pick was slammed before we knew anything about injuries. That Zach Collins draft pick was absolutely criticized. I haven't heard one bit of criticism on the Clingan, and I hope Clingan turns out to be a tremendous asset, but it is interesting to me that I think those two fairly comparable players, one guy's from Bristol, Connecticut, the other guy's from Henderson, Nevada, two American-born 7-footers, both went to big-time colleges, big-time programs, played in the Final Four. Fairly comparable stats, wouldn't you say?
I see their games are so different. Like, for me.
I know, but I'm not saying it's a perfect comp, but it's not crazy. It's not a crazy comp.
For me, I think a better comp for what Clingan brings is like a Rudy Gobert. Is like you're someone who doesn't really shoot a whole lot, but is more of a defensive anchor, and that's how he's going to get himself on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Collins, again, like you said, that pick was kind of lambasted at the time.
Yeah,
being
that's what I'm saying. Are we a little bit? Is it because the draft was down? Is it because the Blazers are rebuilding?
Yes, because
and do we also change our mind of tall, skinny white guys because of what Chet Holmgren did?
Maybe a little bit of everything,
I think there's a little bit of that.
But I think more than anything, it is the fact that Dame and CJ were together. That core, that was that core, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Neil, entering that summer, had 3 first-round picks to get them another star. So whether that was trade all 3 of them for a player, trade them up and grab up what would have been Bam Adebayo, what would have been Donovan Mitchell, right? And that's why the pressure was on Zach Collins to emerge as like that number 3 guy.
Yeah.
And that's why that's where I think that is. Now it's kind of like, well, if it works out for Clingan, it's great. If not, well,
Also, by the way, you talk about rim protection. Just so everybody, Zach Collins averaged 1.8 blocks his freshman year, where he played 17 minutes, and 2.1 blocks per game as a career for Clingan. So Zach Collins was a rim protector too in college.
Again, Zach Collins. Well,
I know you're right about the games being different. But you look at blocking, rebounding.
we shouldn't.
It's not an insane comparison.
Well, that and it's like, and we can.
Yeah, everybody was so mad when Zach Collins.
And
got
we can
drafted.
see now. Use it in your head, right? You look now that he's come back from injury. Last couple of years, Zach Collins been a 12-6 guy. Without injuries, is he maybe an 18-10 guy? Certainly possible. So
I'm just bringing up the reaction to the pick. One was 7, one was 10, and boy, I don't know if it's all that different. Maybe I'm completely off base. It was just something I thought of. We have got who we got? Mike Richmond. He joins the show next. 620 Rip City Radio. I don't know if our next guest watches Shark Tank, but Blazers felt very Shark Tank yesterday from this perspective. They went into that second round going like, all right, what are the numbers here? No good. Yep, for those I'm just going to get out real fast. And they're just like, Lakers, Bronny, we're going to go ahead and bow out of this second round, and you guys have at it. We'll see you in a couple years. We got like 3 other second round picks. Yeah, we'll work on those. Give us some cash, give us some picks. Lakers, yeah, you guys have the second round. For those reasons, I am out. But it was an eventful couple of days for the Portland Trail Blazers. It might be an eventful summer. Joining us now, friend of the program. He is the host of the Locked On Blazers podcast. Mike Richmond back on the big show. Good morning, Mike. How we doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me back, Justin.
I love having you on the show. I get to ask my dumb questions, and you don't go and say that was a really dumb question. So I always appreciate that. Let's start with the first round pick. So the Blazers, not a surprise, get Donovan Clingan. I don't know if your significant other does this, Mike, but my wife calls what I do with financials Justin math. It's not real math, but I will if we didn't spend money somewhere, that counts as a bonus somewhere else. So if I could do a little Justin math, if in fact the Blazers were the number 3 overall pick in the lottery, I believe they would have taken Clingan at number 3 overall. So Justin math means the Blazers just got themselves a high value pick. They got the number 3 overall pick, but they got him at 7.
Something like that, yeah. They really liked him. Joe Cronin he didn't want to say he was our number whatever on the board, because I bet he was like number 5 on the board, and he didn't want to say that there was 4 other dudes ahead of him. But, clearly they really, really valued him, and they didn't have to make other deals and give up other stuff to get him. And now, now he's in Portland, and they hit they're one of their top targets very clearly.
So, he was, to Donovan's credit, he's one of the players in the draft I knew, so I was pretty pumped about that. I knew who he was, watched him play in the Final Four, watched him win a national championship. When you look at Clingan, Mike, and what he brings to the NBA, what he brings to this roster, what is the expectation level here? Because I think kind of going into this draft with a lot of dudes that nobody has ever heard of, it's kind of weird, like What do you think the expectation level is? Is he a rim protector? Is he a guy that's going to develop offensive skill set? Like what is the overall hope for Clingan on the Blazers?
Yeah, I think you want to start with what his perceived strengths are, right? Like, he's really big. He's 7'2", 280. And being really big, for a brief period, it seemed like it was going out of style, but it's still incredibly valuable. The most important thing you can do in the NBA is stop the other team from making layups, and he seems to do that. He has some rim protector upside. He's really big, so you think he'll be a pretty good defensive rebounder. On offense, it's a little dicey what he's going to do. I think he's a pretty good passer, and I think the Blazers will appreciate a big guy who could pass. That's a skill set they were missing last year, and they'll be happy to have that. He should eventually become like a physical screen setter, but where he scores on offense will be a little bit of a question mark. But right now, you want him to lean into what he does well, and that's be gigantic and play defense around the rim.
Well, I remember, Mike, back in the 90s, but when Shaq was kind of reaching his heyday, you saw a lot of drafts and a lot of players at the top of drafts that were like, we have to have a guy that can play against Shaq. Like, Shaq's going to be a problem in this league for a long, long time. So you saw a lot of guys. Like, is this not just the Blazers, but obviously you are seeing kind of big guys and 7-footers come back. Is this kind of a reaction to, like, look, Wembanyama's going to be in this league, and I know he's an alien and nobody's a Wemby stopper, but I do wonder, is like, boy, with a guy like Wembanyama sitting there in San Antonio for, I don't know, the next decade, we got to start getting some really tall guys and kind of a resurgence of the big man.
Yeah, I mean, that and the last 4 MVPs have gone to centers, right? Like Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. You look at Minnesota; they're really big, right? Like, and I think that was that's a challenge. And one of Dallas, when Dallas got good in the West, is because they added a second center, right? They Derek Lively, and then they traded for Daniel Gafford. And it was like, having two good centers has been extremely valuable to us. It's not the only way. OKC plays pretty small. I would say that in general, Boston isn't gigantic, but certainly there is a reaction that like, okay, there's a bunch of skilled big dudes in the league, and if we're going to hang, we should probably be able to be big as well. And also, 60 years of NBA basketball, size has always been important. It's just very briefly the Warriors stole that glory from us.
Yeah, that basket's still 10 feet in the air. It's still, the closer your big hand can get to that rim, it turns out we're gonna be okay. All right, so I knew who Donovan Clingan was. I'll be perfectly honest with you, Mike, and I'll be honest with this listening audience. I was running errands before the first round. I had to Google Denny Advia in the Safeway parking lot. I did that. Saw, 37% from three, 6'9", averaging 15 points a game. I like that. Other than that, didn't know much about him. I know we talked with Sean Hyken yesterday, and I was wondering, like, why, if the entire NBA, Mike, is looking for 6'9", 37%, 15 points per game guy, how does Washington let him go? It sounds like he was too good for the Wizards, who are going to be basically massive tank next year, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is that he is the previous regime's draft pick, and maybe that the new regime in Washington says we're going another direction. Two, they got a pretty nice haul from him. They got 2 first-round picks and Malcolm Brogdon, who could potentially be traded again, although maybe he'll just get Portland and end up on a bad team all year while everyone speculates that he gets traded. And a couple seconds, I think Washington got a pretty good haul for what Denny is. But yeah, I think you're right. If you just look at it just sort of on its face, he's a 6'9" dude who can dribble, pass, shoot, and defend, and that's the exact type of player everyone's looking for, and that's pretty good business for the Blazers. I will say it's a little weird for a team in their position to be sending out draft picks.
Yeah,
that is a little weird. It's uncommon. It's peculiar. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think it's notably odd for a team that is the worst team in the West and projects to likely be the worst team in the West again next year to be sending out future picks as opposed to trying to accumulate them. But that doesn't mean that they didn't do a good job and didn't add a player that can help. Denny Avdia is 23 on a team-controlled deal for 4 years. I think it's an atypical move, but I have one that you can totally see why they would do.
Mike Richmond from the Locked On Blazers podcast joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, you said something very appropriate in that last answer, which you said that was the previous regime. And then we got Joe Cronin in his post-first round press conference. Now, I don't know if this was just a mix-up or if there was actual heft behind the decision to say, we are committed to building around Scoot and Shaden, who are clearly Joe Cronin's draft picks. Everybody else was acquired other than Clingan, if you weren't brought in via trade. Everyone else was acquired, and Anthony Simons, in the previous regime. Even though Cronin was part of that previous regime, it's pretty clear that there's a line of delineation. What did you think of Cronin's comments when he basically said, yeah, we're committed to building around Scoot and Shaden, and those were the only 2 names that he chose?
Yeah, it's pretty telling omission, right? Whether that was a mistake or a very calculated omission or just or whatever in another scenario, the fact that he did not mention a 25-year-old 20-point-per-game scorer as part of the core we're going to build around. The question wasn't about Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson either. It was a very open-ended question so what do you do next? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of what do you do next? I think it was a very telling response. I don't think it means that Anthony Simons gets traded this weekend, but it also means that Anthony Simons could get traded this weekend.
Because it is something, and I don't know, maybe I have overblown this. I've been known to do that a time or two, but it does feel like, look, there's a logjam at guard. I don't see a basketball way that Scoot, Ant, and Shaden all play at the same time. I don't see either one of those guys coming off the bench. And again, going back to who drafted you, whose guy are you? That's a part of life in professional sports. And if you got those 3 guys and one of them's got to go, it's probably the guy that wasn't drafted by me, you know?
Yeah, Yeah, and it's like Anthony Simons is probably also the player you can trade to get the most stuff back. Like he's the most valuable trade chip. I guess conceivably Shaden Sharp, but like realistically, Simons is like he's pretty good. He has some deficiencies, but like the things that he does well in the right situation can be incredibly valuable. And you know, I just think yeah, like this team has picked a direction. When they chose Scoot Henderson, they picked a very distinct direction, and it was away from Damian Lillard, and eventually it's away from the old guard, and the old guards. I mean, it's just when you make a pick in the top 5, there's a level of franchise investment that is put into them, and like they've kind of chosen this path. Whether it's the right one, we'll see. But you know, you make the series of decisions they've made have all pointed in this direction, and I think Cronin's omission of Anthony Simons in the who we're going to build around answer is a telling tip of what that direction is about to become.
Mike Richmond from the Locked On Blazers podcast joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. The other thing that I found interesting that Cronin said, because he used and maybe I've been guilty of overusing words again and again. What happens when you do a show for 3 hours a day? I'm sure you've got a couple of doozies that you go to doing a daily podcast, but he kept continuing to talk about growth and build, grow and build. And I have always believed, and this is not a criticism, it is simply an observation, that certain players, once they find their spot in this league, Mike, where it's like, look, I give you 17 points, I give you 9 rebounds, you give me $17 million. Deal. I shall do no more. You shall pay me no less. And let's go on about making the business of basketball as opposed to bringing in young, hungry guys. And so I wonder, Brogdon was one of those guys, clearly like that. He knew his role. He knew where he fit in the NBA. I wonder about Jeremy Grant. I wonder about Robert Williams. I wonder about Matisse Thybulle because, you know, when you hear him talk about building around Scoot and Shaden, but also talking about growth and building as opposed to, you know, some of the other guys who are established, I want, how busy is the Blazers roster going to be this summer?
Well, right now, as we're chatting here on a Friday morning, it's full. It's full.
We're full.
They have 12 players under guaranteed contracts. They got non-guarantees for Tumani Kamara and Jabari Walker. That puts you at 14. And then a final partially guaranteed deal for Delano Banton. That's 15. That's a full roster. You're done. The boat is full. So if any changes come, the trades are happening. Like they literally can't sign players to free agency starts on Sunday afternoon. So the next time you hear Justin's wonderful voice, it'll be the first day of free agency in the NBA, which is great for the content machine. Congratulations.
I love it.
But like the moves that can be made by this franchise are through the trade market, and the obvious moves are to get rid of some of the veterans and go a little bit younger. You know, when you make the move for Denny and you send out picks, the way you sort of recoup that and then balance it on the other side is to send out some veterans and bring back picks, and then you've got a little bit of balance. I think they will explore a trade for Jeremy Grant. I think they'll explore a trade for Anthony Simons. I'm not sure what you get for Rob Williams and Matisse Thybulle, but I'm sure they will make calls on those guys as well, and they will explore their options because the way this team changes, the way this team improves, and the way the asset base, to use a sort of gross efficiency term, the way the asset base improves is that you trade these vets and you continue the path to going young. There's no urgency for them to win, but there is an urgency for them to continue to improve the future of the franchise.
You mentioned it there with there's no urgency for them to win. I brought this up in the segment before, and Mike, you and I know this because we have worked together in previous spots, one of which no longer exists and went sundown. You also were a guest on a radio show that I had at another station, and you knew of my affinity for Zach Collins. Felt like, you know, injuries, unfortunate, but I always liked Zach Collins. I never really hated the pick. And so I went back and I looked. Zach Collins coming out of Gonzaga. Now, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but it's not a crazy comp when you look at Zach Collins and Donovan Clingan, 7-foot white guys from America, just saying. But when you look at some of the numbers, some of the statistics, it's not. The Zach Collins draft was roasted. I remember I took the phone calls. Didn't feel that way when Clingan was drafted. Is that because there's no urgency to win right away? Because in 2017, the Blazers were coming off of getting swept by the Warriors. Is it the reality that nobody else in this draft was anybody that you wanted? Where do you see kind of the difference from a lot of Blazer fans? And I know it's a very small number online who get very upset, but the Zach Collins draft or pick got roasted, and this one didn't. I was a little bit surprised by that.
Yeah, I don't remember the 2017 in the moment getting roasted. I know after the fact, everyone was like, what the hell? They got the wrong Collins. They didn't even get the right dude named Collins in the draft. So I remember that, like, sort of the with the benefit of hindsight. But some of it is that I think there is, because the team is being intentionally bad as opposed to trying to win. Like they were trying to be really good in 2017, the 2017-18 season, and they were until they got to the playoffs and they were really bad. But they, when you have this, when you give yourself a long runway, you kind of buy hope. You kind of buy a little bit of goodwill towards, like, okay, they're making the right move. Also, Donovan Clingan won the national championship and Zach lost it. Go Tar Heels. I think that
I was there. I was on the court. Watched one shining moment right from midcourt.
Yeah, well, they caught a lot of fouls on your boy Zach. But like I think some of it is just like the space the team is in, and also I believe at the time in 2017 the sort of the patience with Neil Olshey was running out, whereas Joe Cronin, like he has I think he has some sort of polarity in his approval rating. People either really like him or really hate him, but I think there's a group of fans that think, like, this guy gets it in a way that maybe the previous regime didn't, and they're giving him the strong benefit of the doubt. But let me tell you, the draft picks on draft night are typically beloved.
Yeah.
Once the ball starts bouncing, things change quick. Things change real quick. So if Donovan Clingan delivers, people are going to love him, and I think there's reason to have some real faith in him. But it's things shift quickly from June to November.
Mike Richmond from the Locked On Blazers podcast joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One last thing before we let you go, Mike, because and again, kind of a bit of an unfair question, but for a long, long time, we saw it started with kind of the first entity of this rebuild, which was trading away CJ, trading away Covington, and then of course the Dame trade happened, and a lot of those trades were expiring contracts, future picks, everything else, which is what you do in the first part of a rebuild, right? You acquire assets and you get rid of liabilities. Are the Blazers to the point now, because you mentioned they're full, like if they trade away, are we done with bringing in expiring contracts, bringing in kind of future picks, and maybe like when you see this Abdia trade, bringing in guys that they are planning on playing and being here for a while?
I think so. I think it makes more sense to get young players, but I mean, the thing that they should do, they're going to be bad next year, and they really need to, at some point, they do need to take a step forward. Like, that's important, and I think they've talked about that. I'm not sure I buy that so much that they're that interested in winning games, but, like, there is at no point when you stop accumulating positive assets, and if those positive assets are future picks, that's fine. Like, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they did with the Denny Avdia trade is they got under the luxury tax. Not a ton, but like $4 million, which means that they can take back a little bit more money in trades. So if they have to take back a crappy expiring to get a couple first round picks in a Jeremy Grant or an Anthony Simons trade, you do that immediately, and you are just have a hole on your roster that you deal with because of it. I think, like, at some point the cycle has to point directly up. Okay, now we're building, but I'm not sure they're immediately there yet if the market doesn't allow them to be there. I think they can still. The easiest thing to do is tear down, and I think they're still kind of in that halfway point between tearing down and building up. But if the best trades are tearing it down, I think you still head in that direction.
Mike Richmond, you can follow him on Twitter at Mike G. Rich. You can hear him at the Locked On Blazers podcast and hear from time to time on this particular radio show. Hey, Mike, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
There we go. Mike Richmond from the Locked On Blazers podcast. We've got the RCM mailbag coming up. Before we do, want to let you know about Ticket Tuesday. That's right. The winning streak stays alive with exclusive tickets to the Hillsborough Hops here on Rip City Radio all season long. Listen to the Rip City Drive every Tuesday afternoon for your chance to win and get Hops tickets now at hillsboroughhops.com. Mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow between noon and 2? Well, if you're anywhere near Boones Ferry Road in Wilsonville, the Fred Meyer there, come help us at iHeartRadio along with Toyota. We need your help in filling the truck with canned and non-perishable foods to benefit the Oregon Food Bank. Look for the specially marked Toyota Tundra there at the Fred Meyer on Boones Ferry in Wilsonville. While you're there, enter to win a trip for 2 to the iHeartRadio Music Festival in fabulous Las Vegas. Join us at Fred Meyer as we fill the truck for Toyota and the Oregon Food Bank. Here we go. Let's wrap up the show. Get ready to attack the weekend. It's time for the RCM mailbag. By the way, update from yesterday's mailbag, or maybe Wednesday's mailbag. I still have yet to see a ghost. Still have yet to see one.
There you go, right?
I was a little worried because I was very defiant the other day when you were like, what happens if you do see one? I'm like, I don't know. Didn't see one. So I'm good.
And you didn't see a Bigfoot either.
Did not see a Bigfoot.
So,
I'm
I mean,
very confident I'm never going to see that ever.
Like, I throw out these fun mailbaggy questions, and Justin goes, yeah, Brendan, you're just trying to continue to zag while everyone else zigs, man. So, I mean, it's kind of funny, though, Justin.
You think there's a Bigfoot out there?
I don't think.
There's the amount of things we have found in this world.
I don't think so, but you kind of told.
I come from a land of hunters.
It's true, me too.
There's some Douglas County good old boy hadn't found a Bigfoot yet. I don't think they're ever going to find one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I don't know how my family.
They track a buck for 3 days.
How my family did
deep into Weyerhaeuser territory. They'd find some Bigfoot out there.
But with that, like the other day, Justin kind of said something to me during the mailbag that literally like cracked open and stuck with me for the whole day.
Oh.
And it was literally when he goes, yeah, Brandon, all your life, when someone does something, you probably wanted to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And I honestly went back through and I'm like, am I always just like contrarian to be contrarian? And I'm like, and I went through and I'm like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that.
It's just something in your wiring and something in your makeup. I'm not, again, not a criticism. It's an observation. I observe by nature. I am hyper aware of I observe at all times. Some call it judging. I don't. It's observing, not a criticism. But I just have noticed that when something is incredibly popular by the masses, your brain goes, how can I go opposite of that? Everybody likes this. How do I not like it? Just my observation.
I'd like to know how the whole nature versus nurture in my upbringing led me to that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just
it's fascinating.
Yeah,
it's
like
fascinating
like all that, genetics and this and upbringing and all those things. But yeah, I went through and I'm like, maybe I'm a little bit more contrarian on this show just to get a little what do you call it? Like rubbing two fire starters together between Justin.
I'd rather you be a yes man. I'd rather you just start being a yes man. Just like dynamite, boss. Can you treat me like the Lakers treat LeBron, right? And just whatever I say is like, yep, dynamite observation.
Hey, for what it's worth, Justin, I've said forever, I can be bought. If my employer came to me and said, Brennan, look, you really need you to agree with Justin more or you're going to be out.
A whole lot more. Just keep more.
I'd have to do it, man. So, I'm not, like Justin says, I could be bought. I wish. Be bought.
I mean, I make fun of LeBron a lot, but it's got to be nice to just have a bunch of people going like, yep, you were awesome. You were the best. That's a great idea. Sure. Another Space Jam. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? All right.
It's pretty embarrassing. I've still never seen that.
No, it's not embarrassing. I think it's normal. We didn't need another Space Jam.
And I remember that was one I was wrong about, but I remember being like, it'd be cool. Dame's in it. And I never even watched it. So go figure. Nevertheless, Justin, let's get into the mailbag today. An interesting process here. So let's just say this is an unplausible scenario, but let's just say in make-believe world it happens.
We live in hypotheticals all day on this show.
There is I don't even want to call it, an astronomy change, Justin, and rather than having a solar eclipse for a few hours, say you have a solar eclipse for a week, or the opposite. So if you had to go in nighttime for a week, or sunshine 24 hours for a week.
Oh, like Alaska.
Yeah.
Like they do in Alaska.
But like all dark. There's no like 1 hour. It is all or nothing. Mm-hmm. What would you rather
Sun.
pick? Yeah.
All the sun.
24 hours of sun. How would you sleep? Blackout curtains?
Yeah. Okay. Let's
a good
continue
question,
this
right?
hypothetical because it's easy to just get blackout curtains. You can't change anything in your normal daily life. Can't change anything. Do you go all day, and it's only a week?
Yeah,
Do you
only
go
a
all
week.
day sun or all day dark? All day dark, I would be a mess. Like, I would.
It would be warm.
so
It'd be like
sad.
all day dark, but like Las Vegas at night. Like it'd be like 70, 75 degrees.
It's fine. The weather's not what I'm worried about. It's the
If it was-
energy you get from the sun, the vitamin D that you get from the sun. I will deal with the lack of sleep. It
Think it'd be
also would
wor-
be interesting to, like, I don't know, drive to work in the daytime.
It's true.
I wonder what that's like.
I don't know. That's true.
But I think you got to go all day sun. If you said all day dark for a week, that might be some psychopath answers.
It depends on the
That
time of the
might be a psychopath trait. It was like, if you get all day dark or you get all day sun, you choose all day dark. Boy, I don't know. Just so you can sleep at night.
Yeah, like so to Justin's point, I would be fine here because in my daily routine, I do have a blackout curtain at home, so I can actually.
You have blackout curtain?
I do. I don't know if it's good or not, but again, as I've told you, I pride myself on being able to get my hour and a half, 2-hour naps, and sometimes it's hard to fall asleep at noon or.
How do you get up from that?
It's
Like,
tough
I've done that
sometimes.
before, and
It's-
because I try to stick to a half hour. I lay down.
Yeah,
and
you are the quintessential like ideal nap. I'll say that.
I need a half hour to reset the body, and then I'll get back about my day. Sometimes, though, that half hour gets a little bit longer, and I just, like, it's the worst.
It's hard. So
How do you get up?
I
you
used
just
to
lay
think,
in bed and just look at your phone for another hour?
No, like I get up and I usually will do something to get me active, like right away, like go to the gym or walk my dog or go tan.
And if
or-
I sit down and take a nap, there's no way I'm going to the gym after.
But that's the difference between like if I was in my 40s and maybe trying to do it, maybe it'd be different, right?
Whoa.
No, I don't mean that negatively. It's just again, Justin, we've said before.
But I've always been that way, though.
Yeah,
Like,
okay,
I've been
fair,
doing morning
fair.
radio for a long time.
Yeah, I
And
thought
it's
it
always
was,
like, I got to get everything while I've got the energy. I got to get it all done. And then I can maybe get a little reset.
yeah, it's I thought I was alone with this, Justin, and then Chad Dewing told me when he worked morning radio, it was same kind of thing. He'd come home, take a massive nap, 3-4 hours, and then kind of get it. And I'm like, okay, at least I'm not alone.
Yeah, I would never be able to sleep at night if I did that. So, all right. That's going to do it for the big show. Hey, fun week, everybody. Good job. Thanks to Mike Richmond, who joined the show earlier. Thanks to super producer Brendan, and thanks to all of you. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Monday, bright and early here on 620 Rip City Radio.